All right guys, Tom Hunt here in the kit room, and today's subject is going to be around chatterbaits, or bladed jigs as they're also known. Absolutely stunning warm water, so spring anywhere through to the autumn bait for me. They are deadly effective. So we're going to talk about what types of trailer to use, and I've got 2 or 3 different options for you, a few rigging modifications, and also kind of a little bit about retrieves, the best way to get out of them, because it does make a difference for different species or different venues or different water clarity. All right, so there's a lot to get into, but here we go. Right, well, first of all, I can't move on before talking about the new. I've been fishing in these a lot lately because West End have just brought out a new tungsten headed bladed jig. It's called the Blade Bite, and it is absolutely stunning. There's a few key features that make it completely different to anything else out there on the market. So although chatterbaits as a category or bladed jigs have been around for a while, we've taken our own little spin on this. The first one is the fact that it is a plastic rather than a metal blade at the front, and that does a couple of different things. So the first thing is you can actually play around with color. So we've got clear ones which make the profile feel a little bit smaller compared to something that's big and flashy and silver or metal up the front. We can play around with different colors, so we can put reds on there to make sort of focus points for the fish to home in on. Or we can have clear, so we can mix them up. And also the plastic gives a little bit of a more finesse rattle or chatter in the water. So where you've got your metal blades, they're much thinner, sharper edges. They've got quite a high vibration rate. You can really feel it through the rod tip, but it is very aggressive. Now, when I talk about crankbaits as well, I'm always talking about you've got certain crankbaits that have got much more of a subtle, like a higher sort of a buzz, which isn't too aggressive, all the way up to ones that have got big rattles and a big thump to them. And again, in the chatterbait category, I would class the Blade Bite a little bit more at that finesse end of stuff, all right? So make sure you've got a couple of different options in your box. Make sure you've got some with metal blades on the front that are very aggressive, and also check these out because they just offer a very much more subtle, much more like a lighter, less aggressive rattle as they come through the water. All right, so that's what makes it different. The heads on them as well. Now I'm going to try and get a close-up on this because these are absolutely gorgeous. I hope this comes into focus. Can you see that? So we've got the weights and stuff printed on the bottom. They're hand painted. The detail on the front there is absolutely amazing. I love these. They look absolutely perfect. The silicone skirt is brilliant. The movement it's got in there in the water is just really, really lifelike and perfect. And the hook, oh my God. Be careful. These hooks are probably the sharpest hooks I've had of any West End product. They are unbelievably razor sharp. So as soon as you get them out of the packet, be really, really careful with them. Right, let's talk about trailers. We've got 3 different options when it comes to trailers, and it completely changes the action whenever you put a different trailer on. So let's start with, when would I use no trailer? Think about very clear water situations. I might be looking for probably a color a little bit more like this, and I might not put a trailer on it. If you've got fish that are coming up a little bit short on it, or you're in a tournament scenario and you want maybe to try and give yourself, you're not looking for the biggest fish, you're just looking for some bites, having no trailer on your chatterbait really helps the profile come right down, and you've got a much wider opportunity with everything from small fish all the way through to big fish. When you start putting big trailers on, the profile starts getting quite big, so you are then sort of pre-selecting some of the larger sized fish. But if you're just looking for a bite, you can go no trailer, especially as well if you've got very, very clear water and you've got highly pressured fish. Sometimes that size to it, that you put a trailer on, it becomes quite a large bait. Sometimes just the pure size of it can put them off a little bit if they're not in that really up for it mood, when they're not coming up and choking on the bait. Sometimes just leaving the trailer out of it and just fishing them as they come can be absolutely brilliant. You get loads of vibration out of it. You've got the color, you've got the skirt to give a little bit of this, and also, you know, when those fish come up on it, even even those small ones, you're going to get a really good hookup ratio because there's nothing to get in the way. All right, this skirt is obviously very, very easy for them to get their mouth around it. Next one up from there, if I want to put if I want a trailer on, but I want to put some real pace on it, you cannot beat a forktail or a pintail type bait. So, for example, what have we got here? Oh, here we go. You could put on something like that. All right, so I can rig this up straight away. Obviously the bait becomes, so look at the size of this to start with, right? That's a nice bait. It's a couple of inches long. We could be perch fishing with that. When we put a trailer on, we're really only looking for those large kind of specimen sized fish, or pike or zander. See how much bigger that bait's got now that I've put a trailer on it. The mass is there, the bulk is there. But if I want to put some pace onto a chatterbait, the best way to do it is have a trailer that's got no resistance on the tail. So a little fork tail like this one. This is the mini tees. And the other thing I love about this is because it's got a hollow section in the middle, you can feel that there's an air-filled chamber in the middle. They are so nice and soft. They fold up really easily. So these are some of my favorites to put on there. And when you get that V-tail on there, as they come through the water, you know, you've got loads of vibration at the front, and they do tend to hunt around a little bit because there's no resistance from the tail. There's nothing holding it back. So you can put some pace on it, really get that chatter blade going, and comes through the water. Next step up from there, you might want to put like a paddle tail on. So yeah, select yourself a Shad Tees Slim is the number one for me, because I find you have to try and match the cadence of the paddle tail up with the high cadence of the vibration jig. So I tend to actually avoid the Shad Tees regular. Deeper body, it's got more body roll. I'm not really looking for that. I'm looking for a longer, slender, so something like a Hyper Tees, something like a Shad Tees Slim, and those tails a little bit smaller, really high vibration rate, and that matches what's going on up at the front and at the back, and that cadence matches. It's absolutely perfect. When you start putting other ones on, like maybe a Bull Tees wouldn't be quite right for me. Tail's a little bit too big. Shad Tees regular, tail's too big, little bit too much body roll. You end up with sort of the front end going brrr and the back end going womp, 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 and it just doesn't, they just don't seem as effective. So go for those tails that have got small paddle tails, high vibration rates, and it marries up with the blade up at the front. And then and I tend to use that. Maybe I've got a little bit more coloured water where I want extra attraction out of the tail. Maybe I want to slow my bait up a little bit. I want to fish a little bit more medium rather than fast. So fast is best with your fork tails because there's no resistance. Medium's best with a little paddle tail on the back, just for how it works and comes through the water. And then my third option, I've got one rigged up here, and a lot of people might not have done this before, but get yourself a Cree craw on the back. The flat profile of a Cree craw and the fact that it's got two large arms on there is absolutely perfect for when I want to slow that bait down and when I want a bit of hang time. So particularly if I'm fishing, if I'm getting a lot of fish on the pause, if I'm fishing over the top of weed and I want to be able to pause and not drop down into that weed, something with a trailer on like this, like I said, no resistance, it's going to drop really quickly. Something like the Cree craw just offers more of that parachute and holds up in the water a little bit more and gives you a slower fall. So if you're getting fish on the pause, you're fishing over the top of weed, it's absolutely ideal. I use a Cree craw as a trailer. I'm not using it as a crawfish imitation. It's got nothing to do with, I'm not trying to match the hatch. I'm not trying to think, are they feeding on crayfish? I'm using it for its profile. It's got a much wider, much flatter profile that gives so much more resistance, so I get more hang time. And if I want to fish a chatterbait that's got a little bit slower, so again, the more the murky the water, the more coloured the water is, I might want to slow it down a little bit. I might want to give a little bit of extra hang time. So I've got all of that vibration saying, here I am, come and find me. But then I've got pauses, which gives them time to come in and hit that bait. All right, so that's the difference with chatterbaits and the trailers. Now, I do want to go into a few modifications, all right? So, the guys at Westin have obviously created 3 different sizes. I'll call them small, medium, large. I think we've got 9 gram, 14 gram, 21 gram. And I've got the 21 gram here, all right? This is the 14 gram. Now, you can obviously see the size of the blade is completely different, all right? Now, here's a tip. For me, I fish a lot of highly pressured waters, all right? This, although I said at the beginning they're at the more subtle end, this is a big blade and it gives you quite a bit of a thump. It's obviously a bigger thump than a smaller one. However, I've been playing around with these, and if you get yourself a snazzy set of these new Westin split ring pliers, I want you just to be able to see there, that is the front end of the jig head. I'm just going to get my pliers into the eye of the hook, just gently prise it open like that, right? And you can swap your blades out. Now, I might be fishing slightly deeper, for example. I might be wanting to get my bait down. I might be wanting to fish a bit faster, but I don't want a supersized blade on there. I'm gonna swap that out sometimes, and I've had amazing success with the medium-sized blade on the heavy sized head. All right, so top tips, you can take these off, swap them over, and just give yourself, just be really gentle. Just get your split ring pliers, open the eye of that up. As you can see, I've opened that up, and then I can get the next one, slide it on there, and I can play with my colors so I can have unique combinations, but mainly I can play with my sizes. And this size as well, for me, when I want to fish a little bit deeper, is absolutely brilliant on the heavier head. All right. While we show you that, you'll probably notice there as well, I've got a stinger on there. Now, I've had some really interesting scenarios in the past with chatterbait fishing, right? Particularly with Zander, where my hookup ratios have been quite poor. And I'm talking like 2, 3, 4, 5 bites sometimes, and you can get a wallop of a bite, which you often do, and they then, for some reason, you're not getting a hookup. And it's not because the hook's not sharp, it's not because the ratio of the wire to your rod is wrong or anything like that, which can often be when you don't get good hookups. It's often because that blade up at the front, all right, like this, can sometimes collapse and almost work like a weed guard. So if, for example, I've got fish coming up on it a bit normal and they clamp down on the bait like this, you won't have a problem. But sometimes with Zander and sometimes with pike, they literally swallow the whole bait, which means the blade goes in as well. And it hits the back of their throat, all right? So it hits the back of their throat and the blade rolls over like that. And then you go to strike, and you strike, and the blade almost works like a weed guard sometimes. Now, it is just par for the course because you can't have a chatterbait blade without a blade on the front, and it's just the way that they're made sometimes. However, when you get that, think about putting a stinger on, all right? So you can get them ready-made from Westin, this type of stuff. This is, I've got wire ones made up here that I make myself, or you can buy them. Or we've also got, if you're fishing for Zander, we've got these cool little gadgets here where they've got a little sort of a rubber bead on, and you can, when you're changing around with your blades, so think about it like this, you can pop that over the front. I can pull that down so it's sharp going into my finger. See that? So it's tightened down nicely, and I'm going to pull that down to the bottom. I'm then going to put my blade back on. So that goes on like that. All right, and then I get my pliers and I just pinch the eye gently and just close that loop back up, and we are good to go. All right, so hang on, let me get this right. There we go, perfect. Now, you cannot attach a stinger to anywhere near the blade because it takes the blade out of the equation. It won't work properly, all right? But taking the blade off, sliding that round onto just up at the front where the head is, and there you go. You've got yourself a little stinger that you can put into the bait at the bottom. Absolutely fine that it's in the middle of the silicone skirt there, that's no problem whatsoever. But when that fish comes along, if they're absolutely choking on it, sometimes those zander and pike, they come and engulf the whole thing, and then you go to strike, and obviously that's working. This stinger, all right, is going to get you a higher hookup ratio. So there's a little tip. So there we go, guys. The new blade bite from Westin. A few tips on chatterbait trailers, a few modifications, play around with them. But yeah, any more questions on my channel, drop them in the comments below. And until then, I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.